Attention, all you fishes in the sea. You know him as the co host of the hilarious Chubby Behemoth podcast with Sam Talon. You know him from the Kill Tony community. You know him as the hilariously funny comedian Nathan Lund. Welcome to the Fishbowl.
Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to swim in the bowl with me.
Yeah, I got my floaties on. You can't tell, but I have floaties. I have a little life preserver for the around my waist, so I can swim on my back easily.
I'm in one of those chairs with the cup holder and the floating right by it, making sure my guppies don't drown.
Yeah,
But the key thing we gotta know is if the temperature is just right.
yeah, it's like a bath. Feels good.
Yeah, yeah. Not too hot, not too cold.
Feels like
Like
amniotic fluid. Yeah, it's nice.
like the instead of the three bears with the porridge, it's the three fish with the fish food.
Yeah, no, I'm getting my minerals and nutrients. Not, and I'm not getting it to be a fat fish, so that's good. You got to be healthy so I can live my full 6 months or whatever.
Right. And it's just swimming upstream from here.
Yeah, man. What's that
Awesome.
poster you got from Dusk Till Dawn? What's the other one?
Yeah.
Forbidden Planet or what? No.
Army of Darkness.
Oh, hell yeah. Dude.
Yeah. Yeah. And my shirt,
Shooter. Do you know the comedian Steph Tolev?
it's funny I actually wore the shirt so it's funny you brought it up because if you weren't, I saw her this past week.
Oh, shit.
It's in Pittsburgh, and Jefferson McDonald opened, for her, and I
Yeah.
forget who. I apologize, Steph and Jefferson, the comedian who opened for them, but it was a great show.
I
Uh,
would imagine, yeah. I love Steph. And all the videos with Jefferson have been great. They reenact scenes
yes,
from Happy Gilmore, or I've seen, a couple other movies, but it's really funny to watch Jefferson play his own dad.
right, and
And then
the funny, right,
for Steph to play that giant that got the nail in the
yeah,
head, or
jackass.
or yes, what's his name? Shit.
Don,
He just died.
yeah, he just died. Yeah, also from Pittsburgh.
Was it Joe something? Joe
Yeah, yeah,
Fleischer? No,
yeah,
not Fleischer, but
yeah. I
I feel
know, I
bad.
know who you mean. Yeah, he was from Pittsburgh. I found out, and the funny thing I told Jefferson and Steph because I was talking to them after the show is the actual real Shooter McGavin, Chris McDonald was actually in Pittsburgh like a few weeks prior, same month, just a few weeks apart for Pittsburgh's like big Comic-Con.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
That's
he
cool.
was there, and they also had what's his name, Alan. Is it Covert? The guy who's all in Grandma's Boy.
Grandma's boy. Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, covert or Coburn.
Yeah, something like that.
Covert.
Yeah,
Coburn. You met
yeah,
him?
yeah. They were both at the convention. Everybody was like, "Are we going to get Sandler?" And people like me who've been going to those things for years were like, "No fucking way."
Yeah. No, Comic Con. Well, I can't say all. Some Comic Cons get some heavy hitters, but a lot of what you're going to get are those really good character actors that have been
Right,
in a million things, and they're almost kind of going away. I feel as you see a lot of bigger movies, they just want all of like they want a bunch of A-list names, and then everybody else is kind of extras or whatever. But a lot of great movies were as great as they were because of those character actors filling up those roles underneath, the romantic leads or whatever.
right.
Yeah, a lot of those cons, you get to meet a lot of really talented people that maybe you don't know their name. I've tried to get better at knowing a lot of those names because I get sick of being like, who's that guy? He was in. And so it is pretty cool to be able to meet some of those talented people that really that could elevate a movie, from good to great.
Definitely, and it's funny you say that because like my show kind of it's like niche is like actually interviewing those specific types of actors, the ones that like are in everything we would have seen growing up because you and me are a couple years apart, and basically everything from like the 70s, 80s, and 90s,
Hmm.
is like all those people, the character actors are who I like to get on my show. Like, and it's funny you say that because especially about meeting them there, one of the big ones that I got just from attending a con and just going up to the guy and saying, his name is Mark Ralston.
Yeah. I
Aliens.
looked him up because he was the second guy you listed as somebody that you had on.
Yeah.
And I look him up and I'm like, oh shit, yeah, Shawshank. And, like you say, a
Yeah,
million
yeah,
things,
yeah.
talented dude. And then, it's the same with comedy. Like, I used to long ago, I wanted to be one of the biggest, or let's see where we can end up, hopefully near the top or whatever. And it's like, over the years, I got more realistic or more just like, man, I don't want to do all that shit that I would need to get up there. So I just want to be funny and do it for a living. And some people think that's like that doesn't count as making it. And it's like, but they don't know what they're talking about. Really, you have to be able to work. You want people to think that you're funny and talented, and the rest, I just want to see where I end up with luck and with persistence as opposed to this head down grinding, putting your all into it. That's fucking exhausting, man. So, not to say that people who aren't famous actors didn't work very hard, but you know what I mean.
Right, right.
There's only so many roles to go around, and if you can stay busy and fulfilled, then that's, making it to me. And it has been for for a while now. And there's people know me and like me, and that's enough for me, The rest is just icing on the cake.
Absolutely. Like people like you, and I really have to throw Sam Talent's name in there, and just the whole like Kill Tony team. You guys made it seem like just encouraging like the average person to, just goof around to at least try it. If you ever see Shane Gillis, tell him this story. I want this story to go like viral amongst comedians because this is like truly legendary. My dad used to work the elevator system at Rockefeller, Plaza or whatever, the building where SNL
30
is
Rock.
right is shot. And he told me stories about how this is like back in the early 80s. So like, he met like, Belushi, Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, Gilda Ragnar, Gene Wilder, like, all these like the legends, the people who started it all,
Hmm.
and said they were really nice guys and really nice people, had nothing bad to say. Also used to sell drugs and stuff like that. And
Oh, perfect. Yeah, good idea.
right,
Don't
and
have to leave the building and you're
right.
you're running out of product.
Right. And I mean, he gave me the rundown on the whole like cocaine system and, how in the rec room of, the SNL area, you'd like open this cabinet, and there'd be like this bowl just filled with like cocaine,
Hmm.
and anybody was like allowed to help themselves basically. The funniest thing he told me, and I also just found this out, him and his coworker buddy at the time, had turned on some producers and writers and stuff onto coke and, different drugs and stuff. And, they were partying and having a blast. And the guys said to him, but we'll put you in a sketch, as like extras,
Mm.
on this weekend on SNL. Friday comes and they're like, oh, like they're telling their friends, they're, telling all these people like we're gonna be extras on a skit on SNL. And, Friday night comes, up, you're cut. Sorry, it is what it is.
Yeah.
My dad basically, especially at that time, is like, these motherfuckers are gonna cut us after what we did for them, you know?
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm gonna get back. I'm gonna get back at them. So he waited and he waited, and finally, it was a night after wrapping, another episode of SNL. All the producers, are in this elevator, which he has control of at the time. And basically, they hit the button, for the first floor. The elevator starts to go down and stops. And I found out the most recent element to this story that kind of puts the cherry on top of the cake, or whatever, is that producer was Lorne Michaels.
Yeah, he was in there.
Yeah. And specifically the person who said all this to my dad was Lorne Michaels. So my dad locked Lorne Michaels and like several other, main producer people, writers or whatever at the
Yeah.
time in an elevator, and they were all going, getting ready to go to like studio. What was it? 60, was it 64, whatever,
I don't know. Yeah, I think of like
back in the,
8H is a thing,
yeah,
and the
yeah.
Studio 60 was, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it was one of those clubs, basically all out the party, and they had that.
Not in Rock, not in 30 Rock. Yeah, what was that? Studio 57, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
That was the big one. The big
Yeah,
club.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and they were all like heading out to go there, and you know how they had, in the old elevators they'd have like a telephone, in there you could call for like maintenance or whatever, and they Lauren Michaels would call and be like, "Excuse me, what's going on with the elevator?" And my dad answered, with his buddy, and perfect response, and just kind of the butt of the joke is, we're working on it.
Yeah. Well, that's why you don't fuck with elevator operator. They can make you wait as long as they
Right.
want you to wait.
Right. My dad was like, this has to stay between us. And I'm like, no, this story needs to go viral.
Did you
You want,
watch did you watch did you watch Saturday Night, that new movie?
I haven't yet. I
I
wanted
liked it.
to.
Yeah, I thought it was
Uh,
good.
you
Yeah,
know,
the
uh,
movie captures a lot of the electricity that must have been going on, and stress,
right,
for
right,
this unproven guy to get his shot and to like everybody kind of knows or finds out over the course of that day, like how close or how perilous it was because the executives were like ready to not air the show at all. They had
right,
a rerun of The Tonight Show ready to go. If they I don't know. I guess because they were in negotiations with Carson about a new contract or something, and so SNL was like this threat to take away some of Carson's reruns, and to renegotiate going forward where they wouldn't need him on Saturday nights. So yeah, there was just like this big like power struggle up until I guess either night of, and in the movie I think they might have made it a little more dramatic by making it seem like it was the last second that they were kind of planning on showing a rerun of the Tonight Show instead. But yeah, it was good. I thought just about everybody was true to their character, their counterpart. Everybody, the guy
yeah.
that did Aykroyd, the guy that did Chevy Chase, they were all solid.
That's awesome. Well, it was Dylan O'Brien who did Aykroyd.
I don't know if that's is he in a lot of stuff? I can't remember if I
He's
recognized him.
like the star of, was it the Maze Run?
Oh, okay. I didn't see that.
To be honest, I didn't really watch it. I think I watched the first one because it like reminded me of Lord of the Flies.
Oh, okay.
But basically, it's one of those like preteen or like young adult, novels, like where there was, what was the one with Shailene Woodley, like Insurgent or something. Or
Hmm.
basically all it was. They made like, I think, three of them or something, three or four. The last one I think was like a part one, part two. So there might have been four altogether. But it's like a, young adult, like sci-fi novel series
Yeah.
that's like, the only difference is like, I think why it probably appealed to me more than, those other ones, was because the writer who, wrote the novel series aimed it more towards, boys.
Mm.
So it has more of like a, I guess, a Gaia meter,
Yeah.
where the other ones were like, these are aimed towards chicks.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe more action or whatever instead of
Yeah, yeah, more
romance.
like guy stuff, orient topics and action. I guess, I would imagine by now they've done enough studies to kind of gauge like what guys and girls, like, at that age range that it was aimed for, which is like young adults. The first movie, I was like, okay, this was kind of cool. As it went on, I honestly lost interest.
Yeah.
Me with novels, it's like I like one of those people who likes the movie more than the book.
Yeah. I reading for me, if once I've fallen out of the routine, it's hard for me to get back in. So it's been a while since I've read anything, and I do prefer movies and TV just about every time.
Uh,
Even though, Sam is such a big reader, I could get so many good recommendations from him, and I have, but I don't consume as many books as he does, and sometimes I wish that I could get back into it. And he started doing the Kindle thing, which makes it even easier.
right.
But I haven't read anything on a Kindle. I have one from a buddy of mine, gave it to me before he passed, and so there's even some books on there. It's just ready to go, and I just
Hmm.
can't. I don't do it. I'll watch. I watch a lot of movies and shows that I've already seen because I want to have them on while I am on my phone, and I'll read articles and stuff on there. And so I feel like I am kind of reading, but as far as like novels, or even like nonfiction, I just when I start to read, I usually get tired, and so it's like annoying. So
I'm exactly the same way. Like I keep up with the news and kind of articles like that and just, but I definitely I have my ADD is way too bad to kind of especially since I haven't been in school for like, over at, about 10 years was like since I was in college. So, and even before that it was like I took time off in between high school and college. So, like, I started off like when you're in school, it's like they program you to read, read, read. You have the assignment list, and then once you're like you said, out of the swing of things or just the system of it, it's like makes it hard to kind of go back into it. But, I could not get into novels. I think that's because my dad showed me Total Recall when I was 5 years old, and it's
it was
it's
over.
it's pretty much been like what else can I watch? That is like as graphically violent as this. I've also gotten a obsession with Schwarzenegger and Stallone, and pretty much the entire Expendables cast up to this point because of that.
They helped
Uh,
raise you while your dad was in the elevator. You were hanging out with
right,
with buff
right,
action
right,
stars, kicking ass. Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah, no novel, no Shakespeare, play, and Moby Dick doesn't have a chick with three tits in it, so it's hard.
Exactly.
It's hard to
Exactly.
compare. Hard
Yeah.
to. Yeah, sometimes I think somewhere in my brain I associate reading with homework, with school, which I went right from high school to college and then kind of burnt out and was sick of it. Like I graduated, I wanted to graduate undergrad and then didn't have a plan after that. But all I knew was the idea of going to grad school, of continuing with more school, made me want to end everything. made me want to bring made me want to bring a Philadelphia pastry to the airport because I was over it. So I think part of my inability to read has something to do with being forced to read for school and just never wanting to go back to that, which is insane. Because if I could pick and read whatever, then it's not like, and I don't have to write a
Right,
book
right.
report on it. So yeah, I would have to like retrain my brain, I think, to get over that.
I think part of my thing is the same thing as yours. I did not have a good school experience growing up. Not at all, which is one of the reasons why I really, through watching, Kill Tony and seeing like all the people that he's, helped and kind of gotten like to do stand up and everything.
Oh yeah, we were talking about the make you mentioned comedy feeling more accessible
Yeah,
because of some of the either Kill Tony or podcasts. And that is a good thing
right,
because I thought the same thing when I was a kid. I thought that there was some magic connection you had to have or you had to know somebody to get into any show business, let alone
right,
including stand up. But that's not true. And I think some people could still think that, but podcasts and just interviews with comics, comics talking about how they got started gets rid of that because it's not true. You just have to start wherever you are. You can just start
right,
doing it and pursuing it. You don't need permission, you don't need to take a class, you just need to look up where there's an open mic. And even that if well, you wouldn't start one before doing stand up. That would be literally insane. But just yeah, there's so much information now that is accessible so that you can kind of figure out what you need to do to get going. And there is not a lot of like you don't have to learn how to play guitar or,
right,
take
right.
a singing class in order to figure out if you can sing. You just have to be able to speak English here, and
Right,
then try
right.
to, you watch enough stand up, it's almost like taking a class as far as kind of the basics or whatever. And then, God, yeah, there's so much advice and information that's ready, that's out there for you. It's a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, there's probably way too many people doing stand up, but you can't really, tell people who should or shouldn't do it because anybody
Right.
could be really good at it and very funny. You
and
just
and
have to
and,
be
and
able
I
to
and I
try.
feel like with like even though like there is a lot of people doing it now, like more so than when like we were growing up, with the accessibility of podcasting and internet and everything. But I also feel like it's not at the point where like it's an oversaturated market.
Oh, it's
So like
saturated. But I just don't know what that, it's not like that means that people
right,
suffer. Like, and also how could you couldn't say we're full of comics right now, so go home. It's not really how it
right,
works.
right.
You're just going to have more and more people trying to stand out, and then if you can, you do, and ideally, you get rewarded. But it's hard, it's hard. There is a lot of competition, and so some people, try to do everything they can to advance, and others, like me, don't do much at all but luck out. I mean, I moved down here to Trinidad, and I didn't think I was going to do as much stand up as I did when I lived in Denver. But then Sam asked me if I wanted to open for him, and I said sure, and then got busier than I was. I mean, in certain respects, got busier than I was when I was working real hard in Denver, trying to do shows every night. So it worked out. But yeah, there's a lot of people doing it, and it is tough to figure out your path.
I can believe it. And I mean, one of the things I definitely wanted to ask and talk about is like, like because since we're on the subject, it's like, I watch Kill Tony, I see, I follow Adam Ray. I actually have some pretty decent seats to go see him do the Dr. Phil thing here in Pittsburgh in June. So I'm like really excited about that. But like, it is like I've seen people do well on Kill Tony. I've also seen people like bomb like really bad because
Mhm.
they think just by listening to Rogan and watching Kill Tony that they can just go up and do it. And some people can. Some people have like a natural ability to just be themselves and be funny. Other ones, they might need to work on material. They might have like a premise that if they work at it, they could potentially do something. And then there's, other people that it's just like, dude, you may think you know what's funny, but you you got no fucking clue, So just
Sure.
like, it's better to just stick to your day job or whatever you're doing and just not pursue this. Me, I've never done stand up, but I know that my writing, like, is in writing ideas are funny. Because, like, I have a script on Amazon that's actually like Sam's that's available as an ebook and for Kindle that actually got published because it made it as a finalist in a screenwriting competition. It's called Grr, a zombie love story. And, there's like it's a zombie rom-com, the adult humor, if you're a horror movie fan, especially a Romero movie fan, like you'll really get the jokes. It's like won like over 20 different awards besides being published. And like I feel like I have an idea for like what's funny with like sketches and stuff. But there's a difference between being like a comedic writer versus actually, doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
For instance, there's like a joke I came up with in the script where there's, the character is, a zombie who's basically he has a human wife and she's cheating on him with a high school kid and trying to kill him over a life insurance policy. Already I kind of think that premise is, a little funny. And
Yeah.
then there's a scene, in the script where he's at like some supermarket and there's a homeless zombie outside the supermarket holding a cardboard sign that says "Will work for brains." I think
Nice.
that's it's like, I think I'm funny, but am I like, stand-up comedy funny? I don't know.
Yeah, it's its
I mean,
own language for sure. And
right,
I think a lot of people start out kind of understanding it, and then some people have no clue. And to be on Kill Tony as a new comic is tough because if you haven't figured it out yet, the best part of being new is being able to fail and not having a bunch of people see it or
right,
know who you are until you've been doing it long enough to where you're competent or whatever. So to hear that so many people move to Austin and try to do Kill Tony when they're like less than a year in, when
right,
they've
right,
only done stand up a few times, like it's insane to me because I was funny in the beginning, but I didn't have it figured out yet. It took me a
right,
while before I kind of realized that you need to. The main thing that I think most comics don't realize is how the language is very, you have to cut a lot of stuff. Like you have to get people right away. You have to be funny right away. And I think a lot of people, including me, when I started out, I used to think, well, the punchline is worth the setup. So if they just listen, then then it pays off. But they don't know who you are. The crowd doesn't know who you are. So
right,
why would they listen to you for a minute and a half because they trust that it'll be funny and worth it? They often didn't, and it wasn't worth it to them. So the opposite is really true, where you got to get them right away, and once you get more established, then you can have the punchline, build to a punchline because you're also making people laugh before the punchline, and so it is worth it because there's little laughs that lead up to the main
mhm,
laugh. And but yeah, all the pressure of being on Kill Tony as a new comic just sounds crazy to me. And I understand
yeah,
because you're rolling the dice or whatever. And it's not like if you have a bad set on Kill Tony, it's not like you're fucked. It's not like you can never perform again. But you also, I mean, that could be your first impression, and then you try to get booked and you're like, I did Kill Tony. And then if anybody sees it, they're like, yeah, that sucked. You don't want that. But it's
right,
also not
right,
gonna it's not gonna be the end of your career. So that is good. But yeah, just all that pressure is nuts to know that, millions of people could see your minute and it's like the fourth time you've been on stage. That's a wild ride because
right,
I didn't have anybody looking at me. I started in Vegas and just did, random open mics, mostly for other comics and then for people like playing video poker. So it was the opposite of, Kill Tony. It would be tough to have all that pressure when you're just starting to, try and figure it all out.
right, right. And the way I kind of feel I come off funny is just more naturally being myself,
Mm.
versus trying to like be funny by telling a joke, or like does that make any sense? Like people sometimes are just naturally funny if they're like just joking around, but like the moment you kind of put like the spotlight on them and say, here, go perform and be funny to a crowd of however many people, whether it's a an open mic or the an improv or like a arena or with like some of the Kill Tony stuff. I mean, like for instance, like yesterday I participated in some study to make some quick cash. There was another participant in the study. I have no clue if they like pre-screened us or anything, but never met this dude in my life. First time interacting. And, he told me afterwards I was wearing a King of the Hill t-shirt, and he said, I saw your t-shirt, so I knew, who you were. Essentially like your taste in, movies and everything is probably the same as mine. But, we like just hit it off and we're joking around the whole time and just being like naturally funny.
Hmm.
Like you're not, yes, it was circumstances of like the questions they were asking in this study, but like, we were just goofing around, and I think sometimes like, especially like if you're recording a podcast and it's like, you're just organically being like yourselves, and sometimes, being yourself or organically interacting with someone who you vibe with, whether it's a longtime friend or, a guest or, a new person, or whatever factor. it can come off just like the chemistry, is like you can't like, recapture it if it's like you were told to like, be like a monkey and like perform, you know.
Hmm.
So I think, I mean, I know my writing is funny. Like I wrote a short script because I'm really into like my two favorite topics are movies and music. And I wrote like a short rock opera called Space Rockers. And the premise is like a intergalactic alien musician crash lands on Earth and transforms a wannabe deathcore metal band into his minions so he can conquer the world with rock.
All right.
But I like have a goofy sense of humor, and I have like, like my writing. I also had this long running idea for a couple sketches, and let me see if I can run these by you to see like if it, being a comedian, would you think this would be funny? The first one I've had this idea for a long time because it's been based on real experiences going to multiple different fast food restaurants, with the exception of Chick-fil-A, because all they sell is chicken. But like, I mean, every single fast food place I've gone to, if you order, the chicken sandwich versus the burger, for some reason, you're always waiting on the chicken.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's been your experience or, at least in Pittsburgh, every single fast food chain, whether it's McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, I've always had to wait on the chicken, and sometimes they've actually asked me to pull forward and give other people their orders because they ordered burgers and I'm like still waiting on the chicken. So the initial skit was like, a joke on like the Twilight Zone, with the chicken sandwich premise.
Hmm.
Essentially, a person walks into, they would like start out where they're driving on the highway, they're traveling somewhere. It's like, I'm hungry. Gee, this place looks good. I could use a chicken sandwich. They pull off the highway, go in there, it's like one of those old, towns, and there's like one, chicken restaurant in there, fast food chain chicken restaurant. They go in there, they order the sandwich, a while goes by, go into the bathroom, and they come out, and basically they're like stuck in the fast food restaurant and can't escape,
Yeah.
and they start like, like they go out one door, they go back in they end up back in the restaurant, you know. Then they start seeing, different people who've been waiting there, like the waiting room in the first Beetlejuice. There's people with like, the line, and then they say, "Oh, that's Bob over there," and it's like a skeleton who's like, holding, a number, you know, you know.
Yeah.
But that's at least like the one idea I had for a sketch. The other one is based on actually my dad, because this is literally him. If I had to describe my dad, I would say in movie characters, I would say he's a mixture of probably four celebrities, or three movie characters, one celebrity. The movie characters are Ray Liotta from Goodfellas, John Goodman from The Big Lebowski,
Huh.
and Burt Gummer from Tremors.
Which one is he, the one with the stockpile, or is he
Yeah,
the guy from Family Ties?
yes, Michael Gross or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, the one, the
Yeah, that
one,
sounds right.
the one who kills the worm in his basement because he has a fucking arsenal.
Him and Reba.
Right, right.
Yeah, I love
And
Tremors.
great movie, great series, and then the celebrity would be
Two's pretty
willing.
good, yeah.
Yeah, two is good. They kind of started to go downhill
Oh
after
yeah, my
that.
wife and I think ventured into three, or she
Ass
watched three and
blasters.
four or something, and they're still kind of fun. But yeah, they. Oh, and then Michael Gross is the main guy in like
Yeah, he
four or
turns
whatever,
into the main,
the
guy
hero.
of the franchise. They've made like, I can't remember. There might be like
There's
seven or eight.
15. There's 15 Tremor. No, I don't know. Or like sci-fi might have put out a couple of them, right? The Sci-Fi
Sci-Fi put
Channel.
out a series
Oh, okay, that's what I'm thinking of.
with Michael Gross.
Okay, yeah.
I think it made it to the first like two or three episodes, and then they axed it.
Come on, let it breathe, sci-fi.
Right. Then some other channel that wasn't sci-fi tried to revive it with Kevin Bacon, which was like the most recent thing. They had a pilot episode where
Mm.
Bacon came back as his character from the first film. That didn't even make it past the pilot,
It's too bad.
and basically Michael Gross has been like the guy who the franchise has turned into being like the star. And you know, we lost Fred Ward, what, like last year or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It was last year or the year before. I remember that because I was a big fan of his. I would have that is a character actor who I would have loved to interview.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because he did that movie with like the most recent film that it was even not really recent. It's like I think over 10 years old at this point, but it was with Danny McBride and Jesse Eisenberg and Aziz Ansari, 30 minutes or less.
Hmm.
He played Danny McBride's dad in the movie.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see that one.
That was it's a fun little, it's like I think like exactly an hour and a half or something with the credits. Uh
It's a good,
and
yeah, good move.
Danny McBride, I believe, wrote the script, if I remember correctly. It's a very Danny McBride humor themed film,
Hmm.
from all his other stuff, especially the HBO stuff like Righteous Gemstones and
Vice Principals
Vice
was what
Principals. Right, that was before that, but I was talking
Eastbound and
about.
Down.
Yes, that was the one. That was the one. But it's very like you can tell it's like his type of humor.
Hmm.
It's based on like a real incident that happened where basically the premise is like Jesse Eisenberg is like, in his like early 30s in the movie, and Aziz Ansari is like his best friend, and basically everybody has like moved on with their lives, and he's like, a pizza delivery boy who's like, everybody's moving on and he's like being stuck behind. And basically Danny McBride and also what's his name? Nick Schwartzen is his best friend who's in the movie, and they come out with this plan to basically strap a bomb vest onto Jesse Eisenberg to get him to rob a bank, and basically, say if you tamper with this, we'll be watching, it'll explode, and the movie just kind of goes from there, and like, Jesse Eisenberg is basically forced to deal with his issues because he thinks he has, hours to live. It all works out in the end. But,
Spoiler
it's
alert. Jeez, I didn't. I'm gonna watch it eventually. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Jeez.
but it's a fun little movie. I actually wanted to ask you, like, on the subject of comedy, like, who are some of your what are some of your favorite like comedic films and comedians in general, both like current and
Yeah.
past.
Yeah. Favorite comedian is Mitch Hedberg.
Great comedian.
I started in 2004. He died in '05, so I never got to meet him, but I did see him. He did a tour with Dave Attell and Lewis Black through, I think
Nice.
Comedy Central put that together. And so I got to see him the one time, and I'm glad, I'll never forget it. He was great. All three of them were great, but like I said, he was my favorite well, still, but it was sad that he died because I've been able to work with and meet a lot of other comedic heroes of mine. Dave Attell, Doug Stanhope
Right.
are still just so good. I just talked to somebody who said they're going to see both of them in the next couple months. And I was like, dude, that's great because they're both just really still on top of their game. Uh,
David Tell is coming to Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh
go
Improv.
see, go see him.
Yeah, I'm planning on seeing him. They're actually getting like a hell of a roster this year. Steph Tolov. I don't mean to interrupt or change subjects real quick, but yeah, T Tyler Fisher's coming. Marlon Wayans is coming. Attell, the guy who plays Joe on Family Guy.
At
Uh,
Warburton.
yes, he's
He's
coming.
doing stand up.
Yeah, apparently, because they
Oh, I knew
booked it.
that. Yeah, no, I knew that.
Yeah,
I think my buddy Mitch Jones opened for him recently, pretty sure. And that's cool. He's funny. I
yeah,
haven't seen him do
yeah.
stand up.
Bobby Lee's coming.
Bobby Lee, haven't met him, but yeah, he's worth checking out. But yeah, who else? Kyle doing it now, is like Kyle Kinane, I think is, just top notch stuff every time. Rory Scovel just moved to Denver like a year ago. And I'm very, like, I don't miss living in Denver because it got very expensive and crowded and I
Hmm.
was kind of over it, just so much sudden growth. I lived there 2008 through 2020. And when I moved there in '08, like I didn't know anything about Denver. Nobody did. No, it was just like not, everybody knew about Denver, but they didn't know. I didn't know shit about what they had going on, how big it was. It was all a mystery. I just moved with a girlfriend. And then to have it blow up like it did, it was crazy. Like I always say, when I first moved there, you couldn't buy beer on Sundays. They had that, no liquor on Sundays thing. And then a few years later, they have legal weed. And I was like, all right, they're catching up, like, but then it just continued, the growth just was
Right, right.
ridiculous and just there was no real plan or whatever. It was like, just come and build, developers come build a giant
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what's
complex.
going on here in Pittsburgh. So
It's tough, yeah, and
yeah.
I feel like when Rory moved there was like one of the few times where I was like, ah, shit, where I was like jealous, and wished I was still up there because he is so funny, and then to just the idea of being able to catch him performing a bunch, like I hope Denver comics are taking advantage. I'm sure they are, and are seeing him, often because he's always worth checking out. Very inspiring. But yeah, what else? Oh, you said movies. I watch A Futile and Stupid Gesture a lot. The story of Doug Kenny from
Hmm.
Harvard Lampoon, National Lampoon, Caddyshack,
Right, right.
Animal House. I really enjoy. Unfortunately, a lot of my favorite stories about entertainers are the tragic ones. Like somebody's a genius, but along with that genius, comes demons or addiction or
Right,
whatever, and then they
right.
die young. David Foster Wallace. I haven't read Infinite Jest, but I've read a lot of his articles, his essays, and I
Hmm.
love the movie The End of the Tour, which is Jesse Eisenberg and Jason Segel is David Foster Wallace, and Eisenberg's character writes for Rolling Stone, and they go together. They hang out for like a week as he's doing a book tour. And yeah, I'm just like fascinated with the idea of like tortured, brilliant minds. And Mitch Hedberg, obviously,
Yes, yes.
didn't kill himself, but tragic ending,
Yeah.
died very young. And so, yeah, I like a lot, I return to a lot of those movies or topics. I think because I'm glad grateful that that didn't happen to me. I'm glad that I'm still here. For a long time, I thought I would probably die young for no other real reason than I didn't have any money, didn't have health insurance, drank a lot, partied, and just didn't know, where I was going to end up. And I think a lot of us, Gen X or like millennials, maybe thought like that, where it's like, yeah, I'm not going to like play the game and play it safe and like inherit a home and have a family. So who knows what's going to happen? I'll probably get hit by a car at 26, and then you don't. And it's like, oh shit, what do I do now?
Yeah.
But I'm grateful that I'm still here. But yeah, just like have you have had a fascination with some of these people who were very talented and then just died. Chris Farley, Belushi, gone
Yeah. Yeah.
so soon, and it's like what else would they have done? How long would they have been around? But yeah,
I sorry, I was just gonna say I just met Jim Belushi. He was in town literally like the last weekend in March for a actually a cannabis convention.
oh
Uh
okay,
he was uh, he was there because promoting cannabis awareness in Pittsburgh. He was there promoting his Belushi's Farm marijuana products.
oh okay, yeah,
And one of the nicest guys, I celebrities, especially that status and everything. He definitely came. I spoke with one of the dispensary people who was like in conjunction with him being here, and his exact words were, "He's like that, the old grandpa who gets high."
hmm
Really
yeah.
cool guy, and I have to, promote his cannabis strain chemistry because that shit is amazing. In Pittsburgh, it's like we're still with medical and with like the state that Pennsylvania is, it's kind of fucked up. It's like we have I can't remember if it's the highest or like in the top five states in the country that have the highest DUIs like
Oh yeah, I thought you were gonna
every
say
year.
opiate opioid addiction.
Well, there's a lot of
That
heroin
too, yeah.
junkies
That too.
too.
Yeah, weed should have been legalized so long ago. I know you said you don't get too political, but god damn,
Right.
I mean,
I know.
it sucks that it
And,
is being kept from so many people that it could help. I mean, Belushi's one of them, right? I think he has
yeah,
said,
yeah.
yeah,
He literally said if my brother was a pothead, he would have been alive today.
right, yeah, yeah, and to keep it from people is insane. To continue to demonize it as if it's the 30s, it's like, God,
Right.
please,
Right.
let's move beyond some of this old,
Exactly,
limited
because
thinking.
like I'm not sure what it's like in other states where it's still medical, but like in Pennsylvania at least, you have to give up your right, essentially your amendment right to basically have a carry and conceal weapon if you want to have
Yeah,
a medical license. You don't
that's in
have to do that
Colorado
for
too.
alcohol.
Yeah, have 12 beers and drive home and then play with your gun. Yeah, no, it sucks. It's the
After
reason I
like
didn't.
hitting a bunch of bicyclists along the way because
Right.
you're
You're all over.
intoxicated.
Yeah, that was I never got my medical license in Colorado because of that. Even though I still don't own a gun. I didn't like that limitation.
Right,
And the trade-off was that the medical, once we had recreational weed, the medical was like cheaper, there were better deals or whatever. But I
right.
just didn't like that trade-off. So I said I'll keep buying rec and reserve the right to be able to get a gun. Yeah, it's crazy that that's connected at
And
all.
it's unfortunate, but like because of medical taking over the way it has in Pennsylvania, it's
Mhm.
essentially wiped out the black market, at least for reefer.
Yeah.
So people are, I mean, like all that's basically around now is people doing, at least, in Pennsylvania, it's a big problem. I'm sure I've heard Dave Chappelle talk about it plenty of times in Ohio, but it's the heroin addicts and yes, the opioids and the crack addicts,
Hmm.
that are like the big issues. And I definitely don't want to get too political, but I will say Pittsburgh downtown right now looks like a smaller version of California.
Yeah.
So at least with the homeless encampment. So
Well, yeah, I mean, we're telling people to fend for themselves and,
right,
toughen up or whatever. And it's like, no, people, we need to help people because we just keep ignoring it. It's like, all right, well, it's not going to fix itself.
right.
So you kind of have to try something else, throw some money at it. But yeah, no, and weed, yeah. Just enabling people to be able to smoke weed is helpful to a certain extent, not
Right.
everybody. But yeah, it's crazy that we're still fighting access to weed when there's so many other things out there that are more destructive.
And all those movies and shows and stuff you see where they depict people working at, dispensaries, just getting high, not doing shit is bullshit because, I can tell you this, the weed store, at least in Pennsylvania, is actually way more busy, in flow of customers and everything than
Hmm.
the liquor stores. And I have actually, I think they even did a statistic study that with like Gen Zs, more and more, of that generation and, the generation coming up especially is leaning more towards, smoking cannabis or vaping, which I'm against for various reasons. Again, it's government tampering and there's already been like, deaths and stuff or, lung related issues related to vaping and everything. I mean, I think, weed that, just if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Some weed is just like meant to, I mean, weed is weed, you're meant to just smoke the flower. And
Hmm.
my dad being a 40 plus year, weed smoker, it's like, they're like I see certain companies like spraying, at least here in PA, you can taste like weed that's sprayed versus like, weed that's not like tampered with. It's
Oh,
like,
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
and I guarantee you that like 20 years from now, there's going to be all these class action lawsuits against those companies for spraying their stuff because all these people that are like our age or younger, for that matter, that are going to be our age or, older, our parents' age or whatever, are all going to develop, lung-related issues, cancer or whatever, because of companies spraying, the weed. Just, it's like if it's shit weed, they're like, well, let's spray it and give it, a punch up, with some smell and flavor. It's all artificial
Sure,
instead of
yeah,
just
make
like,
it look
right,
crystallized
right,
looking. Yeah, I've
right.
heard about some of those shortcuts. Yeah, it's yeah, we will not know for a while when it's too late. Yeah. So it is
Right.
tough to know what to I mean, yeah, unless you really do your research, it's hard to know what
Yeah.
to avoid.
Yeah. And that brings me to the topic of my dad, who reminds me of Willie Nelson.
Yeah, just turned
And
90.
yeah, yeah. It's pretty funny, the scenario of everything. That my dad is a 40 plus year pothead. I'm going on almost 20 years. So, I mean, I'm all for
Since you were
cannabis.
7? Oh, no, no, no. For a second, I thought you were 27. I was like, what? 20 years my ass, bro.
Right,
No,
right. I'm like 18,
17 to
18.
30. Yeah, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
First time was 15. I didn't smoke a ton right away, but since I was probably 20, 22. So yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, I want to say probably from like 2021, 22 on, I've been like consistent, you
Hitting it,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that's pretty much the only drug of like, well, now it's pretty much legal, but almost. But I mean, I've done acid and I've done shrooms like a couple times, but acid, I think I got bad acid because I didn't feel a damn thing.
Damn. Yeah,
And
that's not normally the
yeah,
case.
yeah. Shrooms I've had some fun with, but I always kind of felt like I don't want to like get to the point where like I'm seeing shit like, morph and, like go on a fucking journey or something, because
Yeah,
I
that's too
always felt
bad.
like I don't know like what happens if I have a bad journey, you know
Yeah,
a
you have
bad
to.
trip.
Yeah.
I don't know if like since I've never done it, like I don't know how I would handle it. And at this point in my life, I'm just like, really all I need is reefer. You know, uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I think acid and mushrooms are both very fun, useful, but people do them in the weirdest, like at a party or a music
yeah,
festival for your first time, second time.
right,
That's crazy. It has to be a more controlled environment, I think, and you have to be ready. I don't know. I think you can get in your own head, and the worst thing
yeah,
you can do is expect or super fear a bad trip, because then I think it's more likely for that to happen. I think the main thing you have to do is set yourself up for success, which is be
right,
with a close friend or two, have the ability to be inside, outside, so that
right,
you, if you're hot, cold, whatever, like, you need some options. And you just don't want a bunch of people around you to affect you, because you're already going to have enough going on in your own mind. You don't need a bunch of other variables that are going to, potentially set you onto the wrong path. So people have to, yeah, you have to have a little bit of pre-planning,
right,
in order
right.
to have a good time with it.
And I
And
think it was Jordan Jensen who might have said this. It might have been with I think it might have been being with Jordan or Jordan doing her own stand up. But I'm pretty sure it was her. She talked about it might have been another female stand. I can't remember who it was, but I'm pretty sure it was Jordan Jensen. But if I am messing this up, I apologize to whoever the comedian is. But they were talking about going to see a Fish concert, and they took mushrooms before, and they're all like ready to trip, and they're hearing about how Fish is like one of the best bands to like see live and trip out to, and
Mhm.
essentially it goes the opposite direction, like the wrong way, because the song that like Fish opens with is like nothing that she was expecting,
Mm.
and it just becomes like a bad trip from what she described, but like I get that because I mean I know Fish, like you just said, like music festivals, parties, like especially for a person like me. I'm like, it is the wrong environment,
Yeah.
to do. And there's I mean, Woodstock is a perfect example. There was the actual incident, original Woodstock, what was that, 68 or something?
69.
69, yeah.
Pretty sure.
Um, Famous instance where people were passing around acid. And one of the people there, the hippies, basically said, they figured out they had bad acid. So they made an announcement over the loudspeaker. Probably they realized after the fact that that was the worst thing they could have done, which was
Yeah.
announcing some of this acid is bad, which in turn caused everyone who was there, whether they're on the bad acid or the good acid,
Mm.
to feel like to instantly turn into a bad trip.
Yeah. Yeah. Not a great idea to announce some of the acid's gonna kill you. Yeah,
Yeah,
backfired.
you
Also,
know,
yeah, you already took it. I guess maybe the hope was that some people would not take the bad acid if they could prevent it. But yeah, for everybody else that was already on it, it was too late.
right, right. Like, beyond the point of no return.
Yeah, well, I think one thing to keep in mind with acid or mushrooms that people where people get caught up is you have to know you're about to get on this ride and you can't get off when you want to. You have
Right,
to ride it out. And so the worst thing you could do is have like a time crunch. Oh, I have to work in the morning. Then don't take acid or mushrooms the night before. Like
right,
you need to
right,
know you're going to be on this for quite a while and you just have to wait it out. And everything's going to be fine. Like you have to know that it could be a little scary, but it's not going to last forever. It's not going to make you go insane or whatever. So, yeah, and you have to let go of the control that you want, when it comes to drugs or partying or whatever. Like you can't dictate. You're not the one that's in control at a certain point, and you just have to be okay with that and know that eventually everything, you're going to be done with the trip and then you can assess, what you're going to do next time.
right,
But yeah,
right,
I didn't do either of them until I was like 29 because I wasn't confident that I could have fun with it. And eventually,
right,
I
right,
talked to enough people or read enough online to think, okay, like I think I can do this. And the first time I did acid was actually at a birthday party for my buddy Bobby, but I knew that I was going to know almost everybody there. It was at his house where I
mhm,
spent a lot of time, and so I was comfortable there. I
right,
knew that I lived only a few blocks away, so if things got crazy, I could leave. And
right.
I had a really fun time. And actually I was helped by Bobby because he gave me two hits and said it was one. He was like, "Yeah, just take one; it'll be fine." I take it, and then like a little bit later, he was like, "All right, just so you know, I gave you two instead of one because I didn't want you to be scared. But now that you've taken it, like it'll be fine." And it was, it was kind of a funny way to go about it
Right,
to lie to
right.
me, to give me the pill and the peanut butter. But
Right.
it was a hell of a trip. It was fun, and luckily haven't had a bad trip on either of them. But again, I waited till I felt like I was ready or more
Right.
more prepared for
I,
what can come of it.
I have a funny mushroom story to tell you. This was probably my first time, like, really, taking mushrooms, and it was one of the chocolate bars. And I was at
Mm-hmm.
my cousin's 40th birthday. This was like a couple years ago. And his sister, my other cousin, was engaged to this really cool guy. They're married now and have their first kid. And it was like a, big family gathering. Like all these friends of friends were going to be there and everything. And my cousins are way bigger partiers than I'll ever be. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so they were like, do you want to try this? No pressure. And I'm like, it's mushrooms, and we're already smoking reefer and having a good old time. And we rented this Airbnb that had like a lot of open space in Ohio. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah,
So,
typically a
uh,
good mindset. Yeah.
right, right. I'm having a blast. I'm with family, and I'm like, okay, give me a good chunk of the chocolate bar. So I eat it. And I'm like, I'm a little of a curvy, a little bit of a heavy set guy. I'm also like, 6'3", 6'4", so tall and big and wide. And I think like an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours went by, and I'm like, I think I need to eat more. And my cousin's like,
Classic.
he's like, no, just wait, just wait. And I'm like, okay, but I'm not feeling a damn thing. Flash forward like half an hour, I'm having a conversation with my mom, and
Mm.
and we're talking, and like mid conversation,
Blast off.
and I'm like, oh shit, it's like hitting me right as I'm like in mid-conversation with my mom. And, I just remember actually being the most, I think, like considerate, sincere, and like emotionally available to
Mm.
to my mom than like I ever have been or will be ever again. And like my uncle was having some health issues at the time, their dad. So, I just remember being like, just like totally intuitive. The other funny part of that story is my cousin gave my grandma, who just turned 90 last year, a little bit of the chocolate bar too. She didn't know what she was eating, but but I'll tell you this. There was one of his sisters, my cousin's best friends is overweight. And my grandma was tripping, but she didn't know she was tripping. And she basically said to my cousin, "Who is that?" And she said, "That's, so and so's friend, grandma." And she's like, "Is she pregnant?"
Oh, God. Whoops.
You know, you know,
Did she have a good trip? Did she like it?
again, she didn't know what she ingested. But I will tell you this, she usually goes to bed at like, 8, 9 o'clock, maybe 9:30 at night, and
Yeah.
wakes up like at 4 a.m., like as many old people do.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember she went to sleep. I think it was like maybe 9, 10 o'clock, and she was like out. And,
Mm,
and she got like, I think, at least what I could tell, probably the best night's rest that she's probably had in that age,
mhm.
range. So that was really funny. And I've done it a few times since, and I've actually found that like the caps work better for me than
Just caps. Hmm.
the actual chocolate bars.
Hmm.
Those are way more potent than the chocolate bars. But either way, like, it's probably been like 2 years since 3 years since I've done mushrooms. But I'm just like, I think in a different mindset now where it's like, I just, I don't have time to really, do stuff like that. And even though I'd like to,
Yeah, their
because
commitment. But
it's
microdosing, a lot of people like to microdose too because you get a little bit of the positive effects and like sparkly whatever feeling good without the commitment of, 10 hours of your
will
stomach
say
hurts, you think
I
you're going to
will say
puke.
the last time I did do mushrooms was the caps, and that's essentially what I did. Like I didn't eat like I think I ate maybe like 3 or 4 of the caps, someone like
Hmm.
my size, and I got like the whole like head high, but I didn't get like the trip.
Yeah.
And I also have to say this is where like weed doesn't do this for me, and the shrooms did. At least those kind I tried. It like all my anxiety went away. I felt like really good, and I felt like I want to go talk to people. I,
Hmm.
I want to go get my dick wet.
Jesus. All right.
You know, I want to go talk to people. I want to go like, interact. Like I feel like, all my whatever, issues, like I feel like I can go like essentially take on the world, but not in like, make believe or unrealistic fashion.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not fucking Superman, and I can go like, leap tall buildings in a single bound,
Hmm.
let's go mingle.
Right. Yeah.
Which
There's a middle ground.
we does that, but like, certain times like I get paranoid just like anybody else, with certain stuff, and we I like weed a lot. Weed is my go-to. It helps with creativity. It helps with, writing with, I even have a segment where I interview like psychedelic rock bands and musicians in general and talk about, specifically how cannabis related to listening to like certain genres of music, especially like shoegaze and like, pot oriented like music
Hmm.
can help like open endorphins in the brain that brings out like creativity, inspiration, positivity, motivation, all like the key attributes that you essentially want to have to kind of like open the neural pathways to enlightenment or whatever. So I'm really like, pro and advocate for stuff like that. And the stuff I'm against is like, Coke. I was on Adderall for years and I just recently got off it and my life is like way better for it. So like, I can understand, some practical uses for it because, human beings have been like, messing around with like, caffeine, uppers, downers,
Hmm.
since like, literally the Egyptians, had stuff,
Yeah.
so it's like, it's been there for literally centuries. And so on that note, I think I will wrap things up, even though it has been a real pleasure talking to you. I mean, I'm a big fan, again, all the comedy and everything. It's very cool. You're like the first, comedian of many in that niche that I really enjoy watching and listening to. I did want to say before we hang up, because it was on the top of my head, and you said you lived in Denver. One movie that you should check out is called Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead.
Yeah, yeah. I have not seen that. I've meant to watch it and never have, but I have heard good things. Yeah. I don't think it's on a lot of streamers
It's
or
it's
it
not.
probably comes and goes. Yeah.
It comes and goes on Showtime, I've
Maybe
noticed.
Tubi. Tubi's got a lot of good older
Tubi,
stuff.
Tubi, yeah, they do.
You
The one
gotta
I've
watch the
seen it.
ads, but
Yeah, the
yeah, they have
one
a
I've
good
seen it
library.
on the most is Showtime. So if
Okay.
you have like Paramount Plus or Showtime in general,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
they
Fair
they
enough.
run it occasionally along with this other film they're playing right now. Totally forgotten about from the 90s, Judgment Night with Emilio Estevez,
Hmm.
Cuba Gooding Jr., one of my favorite genre actors, Stephen Dorff, and again a famous comedian who played the villain, Dennis Leary.
Yeah, I watched that not that long ago, and I forgot how it's kind of campy. I remembered it. Oh, and I read about it. The whole thing was that the I think the original writer had it as a very dark, fucked up movie, and a lot of it
Right.
is. But then somehow the studio or someone else, a producer,
Yeah.
executive producer, somebody wanted to have more levity, and so it ends up being this very funny like clash of tone. Didn't you think? Like it's like some of
Yeah.
it is like funny and some of it's very gritty. It's a weird
It starts out
mix.
like, especially
Like
one of the
buddy
reasons, yeah,
trip.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
they're
like
all
like like it
cutting
starts
up.
out like fun, this is going to be a fun kind of,
Road trip. Yeah.
you're right, and then it just does a
Wacky.
total, right, it just does a total 180. And then especially another
Yeah.
comedian who's in it, Jeremy Piven, when his character gets killed, spoiler alert,
Yeah, it came out in
uh,
94 or whatever,
right,
so yeah.
right,
Sorry.
right. Especially how he dies and kind of like how he starts out and then how his character kind of, the arc, kind of comes to be in that movie. But there's definitely some clashes. It goes from like being real kind of PG-13 family oriented to a total 180 with being like more dark
Violent,
and
yeah.
violent and
Violent.
gritty,
Yeah.
and totally like switching the tone. But the other thing I was going to say is that movie has one of the best 90s soundtracks, that came out. I remember it's like incredibly hard to find. Like it's out of print or something.
Oh, okay. Yep.
But it's hard to find. But Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. I interviewed someone who's one of the main characters in that. I mentioned in the email or message, William Forsythe,
Oh, sure.
another
Yeah.
another awesome character actor.
Yeah,
Um,
man. Raising Arizona.
yes,
Very
yes,
funny.
very funny. Even Blue Streak,
Oh yeah.
or
Seen
what's
that
the
in a
one with
long
Rob
time.
Schneider where he's Deuce Bigelow?
Yeah. Was he with the, is he a cop? Is he his
He's a
friend
cop
that's
in
a
that.
cop?
He's the
Okay.
bad guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah, yeah. He's in that, and among God, virtuosity,
Mm,
90s Denzel, Russell Crowe action flicks,
hmm.
cyberpunk, he's great in that. He's I mean Dick Tracy, like I
Hmm.
mean the list could go on with, but yeah, just wanted to bring up things to do in Denver when you're dead as like a
Right.
must see,
Yeah.
because he specifically talks about in our interview how that movie probably single-handedly put like Denver on the map
Yeah.
before like everything else. So another thing I wanted to say on the topic of what we opened with Mark Ralston and Judgment Night, Hard Rain. I'm not sure if you remember this action flick from the 90s. Uh,
No.
Christian Slater, Morgan Freeman, Randy Quaid, and Mark Ralston was in it. Mini Driver. It's like Christian Slater is an armored car transport in like Louisiana, and there's this like hurricane going on, and Morgan Freeman and his like crew are like
He's the
thieves.
bad guy, right?
Yeah, yeah, they're thieves.
Okay, I saw that, but it's been a
Yeah,
long time. I saw
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
They were in boats and shit going through
Yeah, yeah, the town was like flooding.
flooded. Okay,
They were
yeah, I saw
driving
that, but it was
like
long
jet
ago.
skis and shit in there. But he talked about how like with Judgment Night, that movie was supposed to be a whole lot darker than it was,
Mhm.
and it got turned by the production company into like a
They wanted
like
some levity, but it
yeah,
kind of made it a little bit of a whiplash kind of a thing
yeah.
where
They
you're
made it
not
into
sure how
like
to
Con
feel about
Air.
it, but
It's like it's basically Con Air, just with
hmm
like a hurricane and boats, and
hmm.
it's actually because of that movie that I got Mark Rolston on my show. Before I let you go here, one last question. Any upcoming projects, comedy tours, podcast stuff to promote?
Yeah, I mean, Sam and I do our podcast, Chubby Behemoth. There's
Hmm.
a free episode every week, Patreon episode every week. Patreon is $5 a month if you want to get in there. There's almost as many Patreon episodes as free ones because we just knew, we wanted to have both pretty much from the start. We've been doing that since over 4.5 years. This will be 5 years. We started during the pandemic. And then we have a travel show on YouTube called Wide World that, is
Yeah, yeah.
the episodes come very randomly because it takes a long time for our buddy to edit them. We shoot for a
Mhm.
week, somewhere, and our friend Patrick turns that into 3 episodes. So there's a lot that he has to go, a lot of footage for him to go through and edit those down. But we have, a season from first one was in Tokyo, then Paris, and now, we shot where Sam grew up. We shot here in Trinidad where I live. So it's a big departure from from the first 2 seasons to shoot in like eastern Colorado, southern Colorado, where there aren't mountains. We didn't shoot in Denver, where everybody kind of is familiar with Denver, or at least the idea of like Rocky Mountains. We are not there. We're in the plains. But I think it was a fun contrast to Tokyo and Paris. But then after these episodes, after this Colorado season, we shot in Rome for a week last summer.
Nice,
So we'll go
nice.
back and forth, I think, between like major global cities and more personal, locations. We're just kind of having fun with it. But those are on YouTube, on Sam Talent's YouTube. And those are my main projects is working with Sam on the podcast, on the travel show, and then stand up. We're all over. My website is Nathan Lund Comedy. I've got dates on there, samtalent.com. He's got his dates, and I try to open for him as much as possible so that we can do our podcast together versus over the computer. It's a little bit tougher.
Hmm. Right, right.
Nicer to be in the same room. So I'm trying to do that, and I'll be headlining shows as well. I'm trying to do more headlining shows next year. So
We got
yeah,
to get
nathanlundcomedy.com
we got to
and
get you
Nathan
and
Lund Comedy
Sam.
on Instagram.
Right,
So
right.
hopefully we'll be in Pittsburgh again soon, but I don't think there's anything on the calendar right now. So stay tuned.
Definitely. And when you guys come, I would love to maybe do another podcast in person. Definitely
Yeah.
like meet you guys in person. With all the people that are coming to the Pittsburgh Improv this year alone, it is pretty fucking amazing. I was at Ari Shafir's show in January. Great show.
Yeah.
Steph Tolov again, shout out to her
Yeah,
and
she's killing it.
Jefferson. Yeah, she is really funny. She's like my dad. She reminds me of like my dad.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah, she
like
she's an elevator operator for a long time.
right, right. You know, especially crop dusting in people's faces and stuff. Uh,
Nice. Well, yeah,
uh,
thanks for having me, man.
yeah, absolutely. Nathan, again, thank you for taking the time to swim in the bowl with me.
Yeah,
Uh,
baby.
hoping the temperature was just right.
Glug glug.
All right. Pleasure and love to have you on again anytime. And please tell Sam again if you guys want to do another show or something or
Yeah.
podcast episode. I'd love to have the chubby behemoth
Chubby
pair.
B.
You're right. Exactly.
All right,
Awesome.
man. Yeah, till next time.
Till next time. Take care.
You too, man.
Awesome. Attention, all you fishes in the sea. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the Fishbowl hosted by me, Sam Fish. You can help Fishbowl out by subscribing on all major podcasting platforms and by donating anything that you're able to help with purchasing mics, different podcasting equipment, and things to keep the show running so I can keep creating great content for all my fishes in the bowl. So thank you for taking the time to swim in the bowl with me.